Paul Martin here from 95.5 Cool 100 and InQuinte.ca with new leader of the official opposition, as we just talked about a few seconds ago, and the provincial NDP party, Marit Stiles. Marit, thank you for coming into the studio.
It is great to be here.
Now, this is your second stop of the day. First of all, let's talk about the stop in Kingston, because there was a big event, you were there, and to address something that's happening in the community right now.
Yeah, so in Kingston right now, the hospital is basically using some of their funding to pay a private eye clinic to do more surgeries for them. And the Kingston Health Coalition is really concerned about this because it's kind of crossing a line into private for-profit care funded directly by the hospital when there's actually space in the hospitals, opportunities to actually fund directly into the public healthcare system. So there's maybe a slippery slope here that folks in Kingston are sharing their concerns about.
I saw an interview about this not too long ago, maybe about a month to 6 weeks when this sort of started coming about. Mm-hmm. And it said that a lot of hospitals believe that if they had extra personnel, extra staff, and especially extra nursing support, they could do it in off hours as opposed to going to more of a private healthcare model. Is that the case? And is that what the preferred solution would be here as opposed to what's being proposed right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is what we've been saying all along, is that the government is taking a different path generally than really makes the most sense. If they wanted to address the crisis in healthcare right now, the backlog, the answers are in increasing staffing in our public healthcare system. So we are short a lot of nurses, and everybody who's had any interaction in the healthcare system in the last little while for sure knows this. We're losing nurses and other healthcare workers every day at an incredibly fast rate because the government is suppressing their wages, right? They're freezing their wages. They're going to court to keep their wages down, and they're overwhelmed and overworked. So if the government wanted to right now, they could actually spend healthcare money that they already have, that they're already sitting on, increase those wages and attract those healthcare workers back, and we could actually dust off the operating rooms and have these surgeries and procedures performed right now.
A report that just came out last week from the Accountability Office, though, said that over the next 5 years, we're going to be short about 33,000 nurses to the tunes of billions of dollars of underfunding.
That's right.
So, I mean, the point you made is germane, that they're not spending all the money that they have right now that they could, but the targets that they've set, according to the Accountability Office, aren't even close to what they would need to keep up with demand. How big an issue is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a government that is both not spending the money that they said they're supposed to be spending right now. So they're already sitting on, squirreling away dollars that they were supposed to spend on healthcare in the last year. They haven't spent billions. And then you've got a new report coming out saying, well, they have all these plans, but to meet those plans, they're going to have to spend another $21 billion up and above what they actually are already planning. So if they just continue along in this road, we are looking at a shortage of about 33,000 nurses. And, as I said, we're already facing a crisis. So what that looks like is this crisis gets worse, not better.
What is the real danger for private healthcare? We hear this all the time, the duality of private versus public healthcare and resources. If you start establishing the private healthcare, even to take care of the backlog, is there a drain on the public system, and how bad a drain would that be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that I'm most worried about with this government's plan to create these for-profit clinics out there is that they're going to be able to pay those healthcare workers more. They're going to be able to offer them more flexible hours, and that's they're going to drain all of those existing workers out of the system. So that means healthcare dollars too, following those workers. It means that people who have more complicated issues, complex problems in our hospitals won't be getting the care they need. And it also means ultimately it costs more, right? Because you're paying not just for patient care, but you're paying for the profits that those shareholders are going to make. It's an investor-driven model and not a patient-driven model.
So what would the NDP do differently? So now what's the message you're trying to get out about the preferred way of doing it that wouldn't need to use private health care to be able to close that gap?
Well, look, I mean, there's no question that our system's in crisis, right? I happen to believe that government after government have kind of created this crisis, right? They've chipped away at it. They haven't properly funded healthcare. They haven't taken care of our healthcare system. So we're in this situation now. And so we do need to take some serious action, and we do need innovation, right? So we need to look at using our operating rooms 24/7. And that means paying those staff to be able to do those extra hours. But again, the difference between me and the Ford government is the Ford Conservatives want to put those dollars into private for-profit clinics. They want it. They're making sure that basically some of those dollars go to investors instead of directly into healthcare. So I see innovation opportunities in our public system, and I think it's the best way to go. It's definitely the most efficient way to go. It's probably going to save us more money in the end for sure, and it means that every dollar goes to patient care and not profit.
You mentioned as well the capping the salaries of nurses. Nursing morale and healthcare, professional morale as a whole, is quite low. They've been the last 3 years now, just past the anniversary of the beginning of the pandemic. Conflict between public and private healthcare, and they seem to be getting pulled in multiple directions. What can we do to try to encourage more people even to consider a role in healthcare, and where are we going to find these 33,000 nurses if right now the nurses who are there don't want to be there?
Well, I mean, and this is where the government really has to act quickly, right? Because we are losing nurses every day. Where are they going? Well, some of them are just not working in healthcare anymore, right? Yeah. They're finding other things to do. Some of them are working for-profit clinics or temp agencies that can actually pay them a lot more, better benefits, better hours. But look, it's terrible. I talk to a lot of nurses all the time, and especially over the last few weeks, I've been really meeting with a lot of nurses who work in hospitals and in communities and in long-term care, and everybody is facing the same problems. They're exhausted, and they feel really disrespected, and that is a big thing, right? After coming out of the pandemic, to have a government that has frozen their wages. And we all see the cost of living going up. So it is unacceptable that nurses should be barely able to feed their families when we need them so badly. We need to create incentives for them to come back. That means paying them a decent wage. It means making sure they have great benefits, maybe offering them better shifts, other shifts. There's so much that we could be doing within the healthcare system, but we won't be able to do it if we continue on this path because they're getting more tired. And those new nurses coming out of nursing college are being asked to do so much more, and they can't take it either. So we've got to act quickly. Some of it is certainly attracting nurses from other places, making sure that they get accredited quickly, but we're competing with places all over the world who are facing a similar shortage. So unless we are willing to compete by increasing those wages, offering people a really great way of life in our healthcare system, we're going to keep losing them. And I think that's the path we're on right now.
Can the province also play a role by increasing the number of spaces, by funding additional spaces at places like Loyalist College, not far from where we are right now, and not just registered nurses, but RPNs? Do we need more people into those programs, and is that a major area the province can make a difference? Yeah,
and we have seen the government make some efforts that way recently, but and certainly we could incentivize it. We could say we're going to cover part of your tuition. This is how we can attract more people into nursing to be an RN and RPN. But unless we actually pay them a decent wage when they graduate, we won't keep them. And that is the problem. So right now the government is talking about increasing the numbers. But again, are they going to stay in the profession? I don't think so. Not unless we're willing to pay them a decent wage.
Now, healthcare is certainly one of the main issues you're going to be talking about, especially as leader of the official opposition.
Yeah.
What other issues are top of mind right now, or that are the most pressing messages you have to get out there?
I was really unhappy in the last election by the number of people who didn't vote, and I understand it. Well, I think I understand it. I mean, going around the province, it's one of the reasons I decided to run for leader of the NDP, because I want to solve that, right? And I think part of the reason that people didn't vote is because people have been taught to expect so little. Conservative governments, liberal governments, the bar is pretty low. People feel like things just keep getting worse. I mean, 5 years later, life in Ontario is not much better. In fact, it's probably not better at all for most people. So I want people to expect more. I want to put some really good solutions out there. I want people to remember that we're a province where we can have great healthcare, great education, where you can afford to live, where you can afford to have a home. These shouldn't be so unattainable, and right now it is. It's been really tough for a lot of people. So I want to try to create, more jobs, more good opportunities, better pay, better wages, and stronger public education system, stronger healthcare system. These are the things that should be like the basics. But again, I really want people to believe that we can do better, and government can and should.
How much does housing play a part of that? Because you're touring an area of Eastern Ontario right now where the cost of living has gone up exponentially, especially in terms of accommodation. And not just housing to buy, rental accommodations has basically doubled probably in the last 5 to 8 years for a lot of people. How much of a difference can the province make while still balancing the other factors like ecological sensitivity and, of course, the available labor to be able to construct places? I mean, that's a very complex problem.
It sure is. And, I have to say, I have been relieved to see so many of our municipalities, especially, rural and smaller towns, who are starting to come forward with like really interesting proposals for how to build more housing, better housing, affordable housing, truly affordable housing. The government is heading down a completely different path. They're talking about creating housing, but what they're doing is, basically selling off greenbelt land, agricultural land, prime agricultural land, ecologically sensitive land, and saying, oh, this is about building housing. It's not about building housing. It's about building big, expensive urban sprawl. And what we really need to see is more density. We need to see more affordable homes. We need to see more options for people, like rent geared to income. We used to build co-op housing in this. We used to build housing in this province. Government used to build housing, and they stopped in the 90s. And we need to get back in that business. There's a lot of really creative ideas out there. And in fact, I'm hearing as well, we just saw a report come out that shows that right now there's about over 1 million units of housing in the pipeline ready to go if they're approved. So the government is actually also sitting on some of this. We could be doing a lot more. We need to be innovative, and we need to get moving fast. And you're absolutely right. The labor shortage is going to be a problem in that, because the longer we wait, too, it's going to become more and more expensive.
Lastly, talk about the transition. I mean, this is a tour to sort of address healthcare. One of your first chances to sort of get in front of a lot of people in these individual ridings, especially here in Eastern Ontario. What's it been like taking over job as leader of the official opposition and provincial leader of the NDP party? And what was it like sort of taking the reins from Andrew Horwath and sort of forging off in a new direction?
It was pretty exciting. No question. And, I get to sit across the aisle from Doug Ford every day and ask him questions. He doesn't necessarily answer our questions, but we get to ask him. And I feel like I will tell you, I feel like every day when I stand up in the legislature and ask those questions, I'm asking them for the people of Ontario, right? Like I get to do what a lot of people out there wish they could do, which is ask this government what they're doing. What's their plan? I get to ask that. And so that's the most interesting and fun part of it. But, what I love about doing this is you get to listen to a lot of people. You get to meet a lot of people, listen to a lot of people, learn so many things. And, I think that's where the best leadership comes from, right? Is taking the time to actually listen to Ontarians, because we have the solutions, right? I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor. I need to listen to people and learn from them about what the solutions are.
How do we go about trying to increase voter turnout for the next election? You mentioned that before. 43% of turnout, lowest in the history of the province of Ontario. Just over 4 in 10 people went out to vote for the people who make decisions on education, healthcare, housing, transportation, more. How do we get that number back up? The election before it was 14 points higher. Yeah. So how do we get people involved and interested in the business of government and in the business of voting?
We have to make it relevant, right? And I think that to me, that was a sign that we aren't, again, like people don't believe in us anymore. They've kind of lost hope in what government and politicians can achieve. So it's up to people like me to show that government can make a difference, that they can make different kinds of decisions that actually have a positive impact on your life. But we got to get moving on it. So that's part of it. And then I guess the other part is actually, just making sure people are aware. You'd be surprised at how many people just didn't even know the last election was happening, really. So we as government and have a responsibility to make sure that people are aware that elections are happening and understand why it matters. But you know what? Until we start to talk about the issues that really connect to people, why would you bother, right? So it's on us as politicians to make it matter.
Has the landscape in Ontario changed? Just as a last bit of perspective, because you get a chance to see it in a different way than we do. 10 years ago, very different picture. And now in the last 2 elections, 2 Conservative victories, now a majority, and the Liberal Party isn't even an official party anymore and barely has any seats. The NDP firmly in second and trying to push to become the next government. Is it a different Ontario today than it was 5-10 years ago?
I think it is. I mean, I think that we in the NDP official opposition are increasingly being seen by people as a party that could form government again. We have a really strong team, and we have a great opportunity here to put forward a really exciting proposal for people, and I think people are open to it. The Liberals definitely have a lot of soul searching to do, right? I'm not really sure where they're headed, but the NDP is in a really strong place. And we are good at opposition, right? We are very good at that. We are good at holding governments to account. But our challenge now is to remind people that we can make good government too. And we have in BC, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, right? We've been government in many other places many more times. We can be very fiscally responsible. We are the party of working people. But we can also we have big vision, right? And we can create more jobs and opportunities in this province.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Marit Stiles, leader of the official opposition and provincial NDP leader, and I wish you luck.
Thank you so much.